Alrighty, folks. Over the last 8 days or so, the One Rental at a Time channel has felt like it took a jump up. First and foremost, we had Ryan Pineda introduce us to Brandon Turner. Then we had Spencer Cornelia introduce us to Tom Nash. And thanks to a conversation I had with our Tuesday guest, Omar Alfaro, Grant Cardone actually reached out to us. So we have had Brandon Turner, Grant Cardone, and Tom Nash on the channel in the last 8 days. I thought I'd talk to the three amigos about each and every one, and we'll actually go in order. Brandon Turner first. Dion, since you know Brandon Turner, you've had some interactions with him, I thought I'd go to you first. What'd you think of that discussion, that interview?
I was glad to see you guys on camera together. And however it went, like because it was great to see you just be honest. Like the first minute or two of that video was awesome. Like I've had to explain to Matt when I first interacted with Matt, I was like, I don't know if I like this guy. He kind of I offended him once, and I want to do it again.
But you knew you didn't like me. It's okay.
Pace Morby vibe of hustle, drive, making all this money at his job. Could retire 10 years ago, still working, adding to the portfolio, doing flips and burrs. And I'm like, oh, don't get any of that on me.
Yeah, I want none of that.
So, but to see you and Brandon, interact, I mean, so good job just being transparent and going, hey, let's see how this works out. Here's how I feel.
Yeah.
Very few people will do that. And then having the back and forth, and both of you being, there's a term, gracious. Like both of you, I totally get it. It's probably me. That was cool to see. And then have the conversation go on where you guys are both doing something very similar. Mm-hmm. Here's what I did. Here's how I did it. Let me share it with as many people as I can. See how many people could do something like it. So I think it was awesome.
Yeah. Matt, what'd you think of that one?
I mean, that's aside from getting Gavin Newsom on your channel, I don't know that there was one better, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's been, once you get into your inner circle, kind of the three people, right? We all know each other's kind of three people. Mm-hmm. And it's the three people that we could kind of give or take. And so seeing that finally happen, I think was really good. And I think that I feel like there's a new respect. Yeah. A new respect for kind of each other and for what everyone's doing. And I think that, there are complete posers and frauds out there. So it's not to say that everybody that you encounter that you like. I mean, there's a number of guests that were one time and done.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so, so I think anytime that something like that for, guys that have done so much for other people and helped out so much for other people and done something like what you guys have done, which is build something very different, but still something that means something to a lot of people. Yeah. I think that's a win for the industry.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I have now come to realize post that discussion. First and foremost, as I think I've said before, and I should say here, I think 95% of the grudge was my immaturity, my just being stressed with life, right? I was burning the candle at both ends. And maybe this was the thing, because again, writing for me is never easy. If you've ever gotten an email or shoot even a text from me, it probably has misspelled words in it. Words are out of order. I'm just bad. It's just the letters jump around in my head. I get numbers, but letters, they physically jump around. It's like effort to write. So writing for Bigger Pockets was nothing more than a passion project, but without question, it was work. It took effort, and I didn't have any time. So I was writing on airplanes and anytime I could squeeze in. And, again, looking back on in hindsight, I was probably looking for a reason to not be so stressed. So I probably overreacted. Clearly, as I think Brandon highlighted, he could have communicated the change. So maybe I wouldn't feel called out, which is how I felt. But again, I most of that was my problem. He didn't know it happened. Mm-hmm. All of that. So that was a really cool conversation. And I want everybody to realize, I told Brandon, because when we were organizing the call, when Ryan set it up, he and I have his number, we texted, and I'm like, I'm just going to open with, my beef, right? My audience knows what it is. I want you to hear it from me. I don't want you to, I didn't tell him ahead of time, so he wasn't prepared for it. He didn't know what he did. So that was his authentic reaction, which I thought was pretty cool, and very gracious. And then the other thing that I didn't realize is it came near the end of the conversation. Brandon Turner has a unique superpower. I don't know if it's superpower, but to me, it's a superpower. How he could take everyday items in the real estate industry and he puts a name to it, right? Like Burr, right? I've told people I was doing Burr before it was a thing. I was writing about Burr. Like you go back and watch my old or read my old posts. I was doing Burr. That was the thing.
Mhm.
But Brandon's gift is to take an everyday activity and make it almost, I don't know if it's marketing or selling or whatever it is, but he makes it a thing. Burr would not be a thing without Brandon Turner's unique genius. And he's done that repeatedly.
Mhm.
And, I did not appreciate that until I heard him share those stories. So, yeah, I think he has probably done more for the beginning real estate investor because he was able to talk about and create this thing called Burr and, all of these other things that he shared on the channel. So I was a lot more impressed with Brandon than I thought I would be. Because again, I knew him as the intern. Then I watched him up here and then I interacted with him again. And I was definitely more impressed with the guy coming out of that call than I did going in. Yeah.
So there's a strategy that I try to use that I get from Neil deGrasse Tyson. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how many scientists there are that are probably smarter than him? Probably thousands, maybe more.
Probably.
He's a
Probably.
super smart guy. But he
Yeah.
said this in an interview one time. He said, I don't know how I became the voice of science. But early on in my career, I realized that people liked sound bites. So he would take terms that were catchy and make sure he incorporated that into his talking. So for me, it became the binder strategy, which
Yes.
Matt was doing for years before we met. He just did it through email, but I put a term to it and then defined the steps, right? The cheat code to wealth.
Yes.
Prison is the ultimate house hack. Like things I've said throughout the months or years we've been doing this that are just sound bites.
Mhm.
And Brandon Turner's really good at that. He's really good
really
at and then doing an analogy to tie the term into what he's talking about. And it really shows.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I when I had that call, right, Ryan Pineda helped set it up, all of that. I frankly expected it to be a one and done, right? Have him on the channel, have the beef, whatever happens after that happens, because I had no idea where the conversation was going to go. But I got to tell you, I look forward to talking to him again. There's a good chance that Olivia and I take a trip out to Maui and do an in-studio interview with Brandon Turner, right? Maybe we'll come out to Hawaii and do multiple podcasts with folks. But yeah, I am very impressed. I'm still shocked at how impressed I am with that conversation. It was a lot of fun, and I can still think back to it and smile. So that was pretty cool.
I have one takeaway from it that I would never want to offend Brandon Turner. Like I have a lot of respect for what he's done.
Sure.
But there's something that we've focused on recently in the last few months. And an example is having Cody Davis back on.
Mhm.
He was super growth and even bigger pockets, started trending away from that. And Cody is right sizing his portfolio. He's going, okay, bigger isn't always better. And with Brandon Turner, he was talking about the stack, right? The Robert Kiyosaki 3 greenhouses, 1 red hotel, until you have the 20 hotels. And then it was trailer parks, mobile home parks, 50 or more attached to city. And then it was syndications. And in that interview, Brandon said he had, of the 3 syndications he was doing, 2 dropped to 0, 1 dropped 50%. So I think it points out bigger isn't always better, even if you have the biggest name in real estate. Like,
yeah, he actually said in the interview that he expected my net worth and my cash flow to be significantly greater than his. Now, again, I think some of that is at the moment because I think there's some pain in the portfolio, which will make the numbers look bad on paper. But again, you're absolutely right. Bigger is not always better. In fact, I think I asked him that. And maybe it was Grant. I forget who I asked, but one of those big guys I asked, and I actually I know I did. Brandon Turner. I said, this is one of the things I hate. Bigger is better. And he's like, you're right. And again, I think it all comes back to, I think more and more people, Dion, need to, you and Coach Carson, they need to go and go like, what's the right number for me? Like Cody Davis now. What's the right number? What's the cash flow number? And folks, I'm going to announce it right now. Thanks to Dion here, we now going to get Cody Davis as a Monday returning guest. So you will see Cody on the channel a lot more frequently. If he's like other experts, it'll probably boil down to 3 times a month or so. But yes, Cody Davis is coming back. He is going to be a weekly millionaire on the channel. We will record Mondays at 10:30. So shout out Cody. Any closing thoughts on Brandon before we jump to number 2, Grant Cardone?
Nope, it's good. I mean, the bigger is better thing I think is playing out, and kudos to him for being honest. Who wants to, lead with 1 at 50 and 2 at 0? Like, who wants to lead with that message, right? So, kudos to him for being just honest and stand up about it. And I think it's admirable for sure.
All right, so let's go to Grant Cardone. First and foremost, let's talk about the sound quality. The sound quality on that video is hard.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's Grant Cardone's internet. He was actually at a hotel, so it was the hotel Wi-Fi.
Got it.
But I want to highlight a couple of things about that Grant interview that nobody knows. First, Grant Cardone and I get on the StreamYard, which we're on today, right on time. So he's not Hollywooding me and big timing me. He's on time. And I let him know, dude, Grant, the sound's off. And we 2 guys who are non-technical, we spend about the next 8 to 10 minutes trying everything we can. I sent him a new link. We switched from StreamYard to Zoom, another technology I leverage. And again, this is a billionaire, $500 million, whatever it is. And he is working just as hard with me to figure out this sound issue. And it doesn't get better. The hotel Wi-Fi is jacked up. So we make the educated call to give it a shot. Because again, if you use StreamYard, you actually get 3 copies. I get a copy, he gets a copy, and then you get the cloud copy, right? And the hope was that his copy would be better and, StreamYard would do its thing and make the video even better. Which, oh, by the way, folks, it did. So the quality that you heard was the best it was. I had to deal with something much worse during the live session. So hopefully you didn't pick up on that. But here's the last thing. This really shows, I think, who Grant is. Again, I'm a nobody. So not only do we struggle at the beginning, but at the end of the show, if you guys use StreamYard, you know that you need to wait until the videos download, right? Now, typically speaking, when Wi-Fi is working, it takes between 30 and 90 seconds. Like the longest I remember seeing was 2 minutes. And then boom, the copies are done. The Wi-Fi was so bad, it took Grant Cardone's video to download 62 minutes.
No, sir.
But here's the problem. Grant had a scheduled call after mine. He's not some slouch just running around on a couch.
No.
And he goes, Michael, this is important to me. That was a great interview. You asked me questions that nobody else has. How do we do this? And I'm like, Grant, I don't have any better answers for you. I have to wait until this downloads. You can't close the window. And I'm like, dude, I know what you got to do. If you got to close the window, you're busy. He's like, no, I'll take my next call from my phone. He does a fucking Zoom call from his phone for his next important call because he wanted this video to download. It took the entire hour plus 2 minutes for it to complete. He did not have to do that.
No,
in fact, I know lots of people that would have, after 5 minutes, gone, forget this guy, I'm on to the next thing. So again, 2, I don't know, I think surprising things that people didn't realize. I mean, how many, I would, again, my expectations coming into this is Grant Cardone has a second of stress loading it. He's like, I'm out, reschedule. Nope. Fought through it. I sent him 3 different emails. StreamYard, Zoom, StreamYard, right? And then he was gracious enough to, and I remember him finishing his Zoom call, coming back, going, damn, still not over? 98%, Michael, almost there. And, 2 minutes later, it was over. So that stuff happened before and after the recording, which, again, I thought was pretty amazing. What do you think?
I'm a Cardone fanboy. I mean, I can't help it. I think he's funny. I think I've always liked Grant. Like, I think he's funny. I think he's probably one of the greatest salespeople, to ever live. He has a way of reframing things that most don't consider. He's bluntly honest about it because now he has FU money, and he doesn't act that way towards an individual, but towards a cause he will. And so I really like that. But yeah, like, I don't know, like when I used to think YouTube was only for music until the pandemic. I never watched anything educational on YouTube. It was only music. So he was one of the first, and I watched a lot of his content. And, I know that there's a lot of people that don't like him, but I'm not in that camp. I like him. I think he's genuine. I think he's all of the hard worker that he shows to be. I think he's committed to results, and yeah, it's weird because I've watched sports all my life, and there is really no one that I'm like, oh yeah, I'd love to meet that person. Grant's probably one of the very few. I just think he's spectacular. I think he's done something that no one else has done before. And I think that the thing that I like the most is he does always take the accountability. He does. And so when he failed the first time, he even said, he goes, my problem was I wasn't big enough. Who's walking out of a failure and going, I wasn't big enough?
Not many.
No, they're just like, I just have to redo this. No. He did the exact opposite. He's like, no, I think a lot of what I did was good. I just need to be like 10 times the size, and then I'll be okay. So I really enjoyed it. It was brutal watching it just because of the sound quality, but I stuck with it, and it was awesome. Like the end result was fantastic.
Yeah, I do hope the team will allow us to do that again, because I do think it warrants a better quality. But you just never know, right? That might be the only chance I get to interact with them, and I still can't believe. Not only did he struggle with me in the beginning, which again I think a lot of people would have punted, but the fact that he changed his day so that we could record, or we could try to download this video just because he thought that was important. So I was impressed. Dion?
So I like Grant Cardone. I think the world needs Grant, Pace Morby, the lumberjack landlord, doing things on a larger scale, right? Tens of thousands of units or whatever, the Ken McElroys. And I watch a lot of Grant Cardone's information for the energy. Kind of like there's another guy, Chris Crone. I watch him. I don't invest with his strategy, but I love his energy when he's presenting and talking. And Grant does that. And he also shows me that somebody who's not good with grammar.
Yeah.
I love it.
He's a leading by example.
Right. So I need that. I need that affirmation. So he's going on some podcasts. And recently I saw him on the Rich Dad channel with Kim and Robert. And Kim and Robert were, they're sharing, their growth, their stories, and how he started where he's at now. And they're similar size, multi-decade millionaires, whatever. Then they talked a lot about, it's a little easier to get the money than to do the deal, like to find the deal to whatever the money shows up. And then they asked this magic question, and it caused such an argument that Robert and Kim kicked him out of the last third of the interview.
I heard about this. Yeah.
So Robert and Kim said, well, how would you start today? It's a question we get often, because the question really is, how should the person viewing start today, right? That's a very important question. I actually got it last night in my live stream. But Grant said, well, I mean, if you, start with 500 optimally, but you could settle for 200 units if you start. That should be your first deal. And they go, well, what do you mean? How are you going to do that? And they just called him on it. And he said, well, you don't have any of the skills to do this. You need to find the person who has the skills, partner with them, and do it. I don't get the connection of what you're going to provide, but that's what he suggested to do. And he was very, again, gracious, like your guys' interview with you and Brandon. Grant said, I completely understand there's different strategies. Mine is different than yours. Yours is different than mine. The person watching is probably going to have a different one. Everybody should find the way that works for them. This is what I'm suggesting. This is what I would do if I was starting now. And Kim and Robert go, well, that's not what we tell the people that watch our show. And then boom, he's off.
Yeah.
No, they were closed-minded to him, and they did it subtly. They just announced, and next we're going to talk about this. And all of a sudden he's out of the picture.
That's really interesting. So that video, that discussion, I think was months ago. like 6 or 9 months ago. Might even be a year ago now that happened. It really does. That's not how you handle that, right? I don't think that's the right way, Robert and Kim, to handle that. It's obviously their channel. They can do what they want as the hosts, of course. But it's really funny because if I get a chance to talk with Grant Cardone again, we're going to go there, right? I'm the one rental at a time guy. He's the 32 units and above guy, and I started to dig into that with my first question, like, tell me what you did different between buying 2 homes in your first apartment building, which is a question apparently he'd never been asked before. Because I think that's the important part. Like, what was your buy box? Right? What were you doing? And it was tough for me to kind of put that all together because, again, my sound quality was way worse than what you guys got. So it was hard to ask probing questions when I'm getting every other word. But yeah, it's just, you got to figure out what's right for you. And it's funny you bring this up because I had a conversation with Coach Carson yesterday. I think it posts tomorrow, talking about the more income you make, the simpler your real estate investing journey should be. And that is the one real sell at a time way, right? Olivia and I were that person. And we just, we saved 20%, 25%, bought another one, saved, bought another one, saved. And, then we grew. But there is no one right way. And I think having people come at it from different perspectives in a healthy and respectful way is a great conversation. Shutting it down like they did because it's not the message you want it's an option, but not a great option, I don't think.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked to see it because one of the reasons why I watched the Rich Dad channel and why it probably showed up in my feed is I watch Ken and Daniil, Ken McElroy and his wife.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's the 10,000 units guy. He's bigger, it's better, it's great, syndications, money, whatever. And she's got about 3 paid off rentals.
Yep.
I don't have to work. This is great. And so you get the 2 of them in all of their joint videos.
Yeah, I think it's really good. So that was, that was the discussion with Grant pre and after. But what I really loved about the conversation with Grant that was actually recorded, and hopefully you guys struggled through it, is I was finally able to ask Grant 3 questions that no shit I have been saving for 3 years. I actually did a video. I went back and watched the video on my channel. These are my 3 questions for Grant Cardone after his team said no or something like that. What did he do between selling the houses and buying the apartment? What was it like to trade Lionel Richie's house to live in a hotel? And what is it like to bust your ass, work harder than anybody else, become the man, and then do something else where you're not the man, right? That's a superpower that most people don't have. Most people are comfortable being the man, especially after busting your butt. And he's done it repeatedly and clearly doing it again today. So I was so happy I got to ask those questions finally.
I agree. I think the one thing that's most important to know about Grant is the fact that he was willing to do a trade down.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, think about this. He was living in Lionel Richie's house.
Yeah.
Right? A 10,000 square foot Mac Daddy in like the best part of the world.
Yep.
And the guy goes, I've got $9 million trapped equity.
Yep.
I need to get this.
Yep.
And I don't know where I'm going to go. I'm going to go live in a hotel. And then, oh, by the way, a story that I never heard before. The guy lived on a cruise ship for 3 months. And if you've ever been on a cruise ship, those rooms are like 250 square feet.
Yeah,
can you imagine going from 10,000 square feet to something smaller than your freaking walk-in closet? I couldn't imagine.
It's all that we hear nonstop from people. Oh no, house hacking's not an option. Okay. That's fine. Then don't win. That's fine. Don't win. The easiest option that you have, and you're not willing to do what it takes, and you're not going to do number 2, and you're not going to do number 3, you're not going to do number 4. Hey, fine. That's fine. A multi-billionaire said, I got to walk away from this to put myself in a position to go get the next rung. And that's what people aren't willing to do. And that's why they continue to lose. They make excuses about their lack of action. They make excuses about the lack of stones that it takes to make a move like that. I had to do it. Dion had to do it. Grant did it. These guys, we were willing to do what many others aren't because we wanted to have what many others don't. And that's the issue.
Every successful real estate investor I know and by successful, let's say millionaire and above, had to do something hard that most people weren't.
Of course.
Well, now Olivia and I didn't trade down, but we did do two other things. We never traded up, right? We were in the same starter condo for 20 some odd years. We took our expenses from 100% to 50%. We took out all the freaking extras, right? There were years, folks, trust me, you would not want to have lived our life. Right? Anna Kelly sells the Mac Daddy house, moves in with her in-laws. I'm sure that wasn't fun. Then buys a fourplex. Yeah. Dion sells or rents the lake house and moves into an apartment with 3 kids. Every successful real estate investor I know did something that most people won't. Grant Cardone's just the latest example.
So I really enjoyed your interview with Brandon and that open transparency between you two. What I would really like to see is a Grant Cardone meet Kevin interview. If you know the background, that would be
woo!
Likely no.
In the same room.
That would be good. That would be good. It's funny. I've actually interviewed both of them. I've actually met Kevin several times in person, and then obviously Grant recently. You know what's really funny is I did a video on this. God, I think it was 3 years ago, and I actually said I should go find it. Meet Kevin is becoming the next Grant Cardone. And fast forward a couple of years, he is. He's got House Hack. He's got this. He's got that. He's doing the same thing. So they are a lot more similar than they probably would even want to admit. Would be my guess. The last thing I'll say about the Grant interview is I want to talk about this. Oh, I guess there were 2 things. The second one is Dion. I think you brought this up in one of your live streams months ago. The biggest real estate crash in history is coming, something like that. The biggest wealth transfer is coming, and Grant agrees. Grant thinks that commercial B and C properties might fall 50%. And the other thing he said, which I had not thought of, but I think he's right, is the window of time for us to strike is going to be relatively small.
Agreed.
Talking 18 to 24 months.
I agree.
I thought it might be 3 or 4 years, but
I think it's tight.
Yeah, I think it's tight. I think it's a small window.
Because they're going to need rescuing. They're going to need to get out. And so, one of the things, everything that I'm trying to do is be in position to be able to do deals like that. If
it happens, yeah. If
it happens, and if when the opportunity presents itself, we want to.
Yeah,
I have to prepare no matter what. I have to prepare no matter what, because my only option is to be prepared and ready to do it. And if I can't, that's okay. But I don't want to do it because I can't. I want to do it, or I don't want to end up not doing something because I can't do it, as opposed to I chose not to do it.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool that Grant kind of sees the same thing, Dion, that you were highlighting months ago about this opportunity that's coming.
My favorite thing with that video of the real estate crash of 2025, where I joined the Crash Bros and I talked about, it was a Redfin article that said 86% of debt on commercial is adjustable rate. Here's what happened to the rates in the last 3 years. Here's the current net operating income impact. I mean, it was a pretty good article. The comments that popped up, because YouTube sent me out to a new ripple of people.
Right. That's always fun.
Yeah. And so they said, okay, great, Crash Bro. Is this the same call that you've made every year for the last 10 years? Pull your head out. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, that's what that feels like.
I don't like that. Yeah.
Comments every time. So that was great.
Yeah, I could imagine. So the last thing I wanted to talk about with Grant Cardone is this seemingly, again, I don't know this, he didn't tell me, but it does seem like he's on a new mission. He's currently evolving into the next iteration, which has got to be hard and scary and I guess somewhat fun. But he's doing this 10X California trips where he's trying to test the water if California residents are ready for a change, which is interesting. But the most shocking thing to me, guys, is the fact he's willing to do it. I mean, think about the life the guy has. Just think about that. And I think he's 68, 67, 68. Like, he's not a spring chicken. But the fact that you're even contemplating getting into the mudslinging crap fest that is California politicians or politics it's eye-popping to me. I can tell you as a somebody who's got half of 1% of where he's at, there's no chance in hell I would sign up to do that. The fact that he's willing to potentially do that is shocking and impressive. I don't know what to say. It's crazy.
It's like Trump.
Yeah.
Same
Well,
exact scenario.
Well, it's Trump 1.0 for sure.
Yeah,
I think
that's
Trump,
sure.
Trump 2.0. He's got
Obviously. Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like Trump. I mean, Trump was, worth 11 to 15 billion. Grant says 5 to 8 or whatever the number is. Like, I get how that number moves, but you were still talking a multi-billionaire that just says this is idiocy. This can be done better. And he's not wrong. Like, honestly, within the first 5 days of him in office, does California not get vastly improved with planning and what they need to do and get done? Like, it'd be a completely different state in 2 to 4 years.
Yeah, it's the thing, because again, right, you put out a video about Grant and you get a lot of hate, right? Which
of course,
I've gotten my fair share. What I don't think people realize is I think California requires an outsider.
Of course.
Right? They need somebody to come in who has not been bribed, is not on the grift, not part of the cabal that is California politics. I don't care who the outsider is. If it's Grant, great. I'd love somebody to come in who has FU money and act appropriately.
That's what's needed.
Right? That's the only chance you have, in my opinion, to make it done fast.
Yeah.
But there has to be an outsider. We can't have another cabal person get nominated and have all the theft. We have to have Doge in California.
Yeah.
The fact that nobody has audited where Gavin Newsom and his cronies spent $40 billion on homeless and got nothing for it. The fact that it takes $1 billion or $1.5 million to build a affordable house. The fact that there were hundreds of $billions spent on a train to nowhere. You guys don't think there's some fraud, grift, and going on in those numbers? The only reason we don't hear about it is because nobody wants to dig. Bring in an outsider and let's go figure out who needs to go to jail. It's just not okay.
I don't think it's that they don't want to dig. I think it's that they are on the take too. Like, it's one of the most corrupt governments in the world based on any standard of any report that's ever been written. It's just corrupt.
Well, so probably. But you know what? Let's audit it and prove it one way or another. If you are not on the take, you should welcome an audit.
Of course. They're not going to do that.
Well,
but hey, let's give them a chance.
If I lived in California, because I've lost my mind, I would vote for Grant. He would have my vote. All day long.
Absolutely.
The goal for me when it comes to politics, especially on the local level, and it's not that politics can be effective, but the most effective politics can be is when somebody from a community or a state that operates in that state or that community can be in office for a period of time, 2 to 8 years, to institute laws that when they get out of office, they have to live by.
Yes.
So they're the laws that would benefit anybody, that would benefit them when they're out of office. So it's an argument for term limits for Congress.
Yes, term limits.
But it's really what we need, not somebody who was brought up through the ranks, who's been with politicians for the last 34 years.
The next in line, they've waited their turn.
Right.
No,
you got too big for the seats, you get promoted.
Right. We need somebody that cares about the outcome for them when they get out, and it isn't the pension from the office.
Yeah, and it's got to be somebody that's going to come in and audit. California's had a supermajority for, I don't know, 16, 20 years, something like that. If you're not going to come in and audit what that cabal has done, what are we doing? What are we doing? So I think Grant will, if Grant thinks he's got a 40% chance of winning, so just below half, I think he goes for it. But if he does these 10x Californias and he thinks he's only got 15 or 20% of the vote, I don't think he should. I just don't think it's worth the quality of life and stress. Sure. But I think he's willing to get in the ring if he thinks he's got a fighting chance. So, we should see. So let's switch gears to Tom Nash. It is the most recent video. It's been out less than 24 hours. So either of you may not have seen it. So we can just talk generically if you'd like. But Tom Nash, monster YouTuber, 400 some thousand subs, a Patreon channel over 13,000. Shout out to him. And I have been following Tom Nash personally for a couple of years for one reason and one reason only. He is authentic through and through. He is not pretending. He gives it hard and fast. He calls out the haters. He to me, he's the lumberjack landlord just in stocks. I mean, I'm serious. He just doesn't care. He lets it fly. He uses colorful language. So don't watch Tom Nash with kids around. But man, the guy is, dude, he was calling out, name dropping Oscar Robertson. He has this ability, like this encyclopedia of, you could tell he reads a lot. And he's just pulling out all of these things. Man, he was wild. And again, like Grant, if you ever see the video, for whatever reason, Tom could not get his video to work. And just like Grant, we struggled. We tried StreamYard. We tried Zoom. We went back to StreamYard. So again, these big channels, these big personalities are really caring people, right? Tom and I struggled with it for like 7 or 8 minutes, and we're like, we'll just go with the, with the voice. So that's what happened there.
So I wonder if he's the lumberjack landlord of stocks, right?
Yeah.
This is a great analogy. I love it. Do people tell him he should own rentals?
Oh, I don't know. I should have asked him.
Right, because when you tell people that you own rentals, they say, well, oh, okay, so you own rentals. What amount do you also have in stocks? What amount do you also have in crypto? I don't see it often the other way.
I did not ask him that. You're right. Yeah, he is definitely a stock guy. His portfolio is we said this in the video, 60% of his portfolio is 2 stocks. Again, not recommended, not diversification, just what he does. It's Palantir and Tesla. And then the other 40% is index fund to kind of give him some balance.
I love his Palantir call. I was in Palantir at $8.80.
So you got out somewhere. So, you're in it still. Oh, good for you. Yeah.
Love that stock. And it's funny because, Alex Karp is phenomenal. That's the CEO. He's just absolutely spectacular. He's captivating when he speaks. Yeah. And Joe Lonsdale, who's the co-founder, he actually was a venture guy and turned into a much bigger venture guy because now what all of the stock.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a lot more chips to play with.
Yeah. A lot more to the table, but you just watch those guys and they're authentic and they get it. And they understood what it was like to get that first government contract, and that government contracts, Zub, as well as anybody on the IT side, like that's just stuff becomes wildfire. Like, even if you get in there for like $17, it doesn't matter because they need 1 billion of those things at $17. Yeah. So I thought, so I love Palantir. It's one of 2 stocks I hold. I hold that in Bausch. That's just awful. It's a horrible gun.
You went at it too, not bad.
But much lower, but I own a lot less of it. So, yeah. But yeah, I think Tom was one of the first 10 guys I started watching on YouTube because he was captivating. He made stocks interesting. It wasn't boring. It was very cool the way he would talk about them.
Yeah.
And you could tell right away, he wasn't on the take from anybody and he wasn't a hired voice by anybody. You could tell right away. He goes, so let me get this right. And I'm like, oh my word, he's going to literally just rip.
He's going to light this person up.
He's going to light him up. Like it's lunchtime for Tom Nash. So I think he's fantastic. I think I've watched a lot of them. The thing that I think I still feel like stocks aren't right for me because of how much time he spends.
Yes.
Like he's poring over every social media source everywhere to form his opinions about everything. And quite frankly, I'm going to go with Dion on this one. I'm going to be a whole lot more lazy. I don't want to do any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. We talked about my wealth formula, and you guys know step 2 is becoming elite at something. And he totally agrees. He's like, pick your lane.
Yep.
Like, don't be a real estate guy and a stock guy, at least in the beginning, right? Because you can't spread yourself so thin. I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but Tom Nash got he became wildfire when he was calling out companies for fraud.
Yeah.
He thought Nikola, the car company, was a fraud, and obviously it was.
He nailed it.
But he told a story about Nikola basically flagging his channel on YouTube, and he was a couple of weeks away from losing his channel.
Yeah.
Because, for whatever reason, YouTube believed Nicola. But what Tom did is he fought tooth and nail. He provided evidence, and ultimately, YouTube decided to keep his channel, which obviously has gone on to bigger and bigger things. But yeah, it's tough out there, right? You call somebody out, they could destroy you. And obviously he feels vindicated because, the founder of Nicola is now in jail. So clearly he was right. The hydrogen project was total nonsense, and he called that one and all of that. The one thing that I really think I admire about Tom is he took his YouTube fame and he went off channel. He initiated something called a Patreon account, which again, I don't know what that is. I don't pretend to have one, but it's off channel. So that if for whatever reason this threat of YouTube comes again, he's okay, right? He's got multiple channels that he owns. And I think that's genius for large creators. And again, he doesn't do anything wild. He goes live once a week with the community consistently for multiple hours. He has, chats and all of these things. I'm not going to pretend to know what Patreon offers because I don't have one or don't know what it is, but it was fun to see him monetize YouTube and then go off. And the last thing I'll say before I go to you, Dion, is he doesn't take sponsors on YouTube. He just says, I'm not for sale. And he's apparently always done that. So again, kudos to him, because a lot of channels with 400,000 subs are like, give me that sponsor money, baby. He's like, nope, I'm good.
Well, one of the bigger threats of being successful on YouTube, and I mean hundreds of thousands of subscribers, millions of views a month or whatever it is that YouTube becomes your source of income.
Right.
So now if you're Sean Cannell and you teach this is how you grow a YouTube channel, perfect synergy.
Yeah.
If you're Graham Stephan, who I really like, I still watch his stuff, especially, I don't watch his reacting to videos, but I'll watch anything finance or real estate related. YouTube became so big that from about 2015 to 2023, he stopped raising rents on all of his tenants.
Yeah.
And he sold a bunch of properties because he looked back and he said, I would make more money on this if I buried the money in my yard and only lost what I'm losing to inflation because rents were so low. Well, if he didn't have YouTube, he might have been a better operator with his rentals. He might not have raised rents all the way market value every year, but some increase that made the investment to where the asset was still a good performing asset. So the worry is if you interact with somebody like a Crash Bro, who's all of their money comes from selling fear on the internet, what can you learn from them? So if you've got a guy who doesn't take sponsors and he's investing in stocks, I think if you invest in stocks, that's who you look for. You look for the person who's doing what you want to do. If it's somebody who just says index stock portfolio, you change your allocation in stocks and bonds and treasury bills based on your age and your time to retirement. That's the super lazy way. That'd probably be the Dion way with stocks. If you want to be the lumberjack landlord where you're doing the rehabs and the burrs and the flips and all this stuff together, managing the crews yourself, that's you're watching all the social media stuff to learn about companies, to figure out what the CEO is doing, to look at what their projections are, to figure out which companies to invest in. I think that's more work than what we do in real estate.
Oh, for sure. I think so. And the downside of being wrong once is a lot more, right? That's the other thing, right? Again, I got burned by WorldCom and Enron, and there was nothing in their financial statements that would have shown that was coming. But when the loss came, it was quick, it was sudden, it was immediate, right? Fraud is fraud. Yep. You make a mistake in real estate, it was massive.
Massive.
You make a mistake in real estate, it's very forgiving. It doesn't have those big collapses. So I'm going to close with this question. Now that we've gotten Brandon Turner, Grant Cardone, and Tom Nash, who are one or two people we should target? I'll go to both of you first, and then I will give my answer. If we
definitely target your internet company.
Yeah, exactly. I think Gavin heard what we were doing.
We're sorry, Mike. You have locked up on our screens.
Yeah. My take would be get Gavin, Nancy, and Schiff. Not the banker Schiff. The Congressman Schiff.
Hopefully Mike comes back. We'll see what happens.
That was
there.
one hell of a sneeze.
It is too. We can text him really quick.
We're 7.
It's our meeting now.
Yeah.
We own it now.
We're gonna start airing our Festivus grievances about Michael.
Who would we want Zuber to interview? I mean, he had the beef with Brandon. There was a microscopic beef with David Green. It was really small.
But I wouldn't want to give David Green any time. Like, I don't think that David's saying anything. I haven't looked at his channel since I defended Zoo, but I gotta believe it's going over like a fart in church. I mean, I would think some of the, Ken McElroy's got to be next.
I want Zuber to interview.
Yeah.
Nick Gurley.